All right, welcome back to the Elias Macko Show, third hour of the program. Let's start off with this. Elon Musk says he wants to land humans on Mars within this decade and establish a colony of 1 million people on the planet within 20 to 30 years. Now, Musk has transformed industries with Tesla and SpaceX, but many say his Mars plan is logistically unfeasible, scientifically unsound, and politically risky. Let's talk a little bit more about this with Lawrence M. Krauss. He's a theoretical physicist and president of the Origins Project, and he joins us via Zoom. Lawrence, welcome to the program.
It's nice to be back on your program.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great to have you back on. Now, listen, Elon Musk is now a contentious figure. Everyone's very polarized when it comes to him. I should point this out. Generally speaking, you've been a fan of Elon Musk and what he's done with some of his projects, right? So,
yeah, he's gave me 2 tours of SpaceX. I've lectured there, and I've known him for years, and so I think he's done a great job in a variety of areas, but that doesn't mean he's always right.
Well, that's it. All the more reason to listen to you here. You know, you're a guy that has been able to show that you're open to a lot of Elon Musk's ideas and the things he has done. Why on this? Why on Mars do you believe he's so wrong?
Well, unfortunately, I think he's wrong in almost every way you can imagine being wrong. It's not. Well, look, Elon has made a variety of claims in the past about things that he's going to do that haven't happened, digging tunnels with super fast roads between San Francisco and LA or under the Atlantic or whatever. And so, because he's done a good job with Tesla and SpaceX and a variety of other things, people give him a pass often. But Mars is not so easy. If it's in every way, it's difficult. And his claims. I mean, he has claims about trying to get a human expedition to Mars within a few years, and logistically, there doesn't seem any way to be possible, even with his Starship, which right now uses up most of its fuel just to get into orbit. But you've got to then get fuel to go to Mars, which means lots of refueling missions, which have never happened at all. And if you want to, there are only certain windows in which you can go to Mars because you use a gravity boost from the moon to get to Mars, and they happen every 18 months or so, and the next one's like 2028, I think, and so you've got to start getting ready by 2026. But he hasn't had those missions, so logistically that's the first problem. The second problem is getting to Mars and surviving. I mean, one of the big problems of going to Mars is the radiation exposure on the way there. But then landing on the planet is going to be a challenge, but more of a challenge is going to be returning. If anyone wants to return, you won't have the fuel to return. And so I wrote many years ago that the best way to go to Mars is one way, because if you want to go round trip, you have to carry the fuel with you, unless you make fuel on the planet. And I talked about that. Bob Zubrin has talked about that for a long time. But making fuel on the planet means creating an infrastructure. You can imagine doing that with the existing carbon dioxide and other things on the Martian atmosphere. At least in principle, it's never been tried, but in principle you can do it. But you'd have to have a whole infrastructure to do that before you send people. And if you didn't have that, the people would be on the planet. Again, the radiation exposure would kill you. People would die. As I said, it would. Matt Damon's little sojourn on Mars would be like a luxury resort. It's basically easier to live under the bottom of the ocean and a lot less expensive. The costs are amazing, even if you could do it. And so every aspect of it is logistically difficult. But the problem is he's also sort of tied at the hip to the Trump administration. And when you spend money in space, you've got a choice. You spend it on human space exploration or on science. Generally, they're two separate things because humans don't do a lot of science in space. And, that involves everything from, what was the James Webb Space Telescope to the Roman Space Telescope, which is the next major space telescope that's supposed to go up into space. And if you start taking all the available money from NASA and spending it on Mars, you obviously have nothing left for space. Well, we already have a premonition of that because the current Trump administration's proposal for the budget basically cuts the NASA budget and cuts out all science, basically, and including the Mars return mission, which has been planned for years, and the Roman Space Telescope, and in fact probably will close down the Goddard Space Flight Center in Washington, which is where most of the science that NASA's done. Uh, Also, the problem is we want to go to the moon, and we're competing with other nations to go to the moon. China's going to the moon.
Yep.
Right now, the plan is to use maybe Musk's Starship to go to the moon, but with him trying to configure it to go to Mars, it really gunks up the whole idea of going to the moon. Mm-hmm. And then, by the way, the moon is a more reasonable place to go first. The other problem is, why go to Mars? Why have this rush to go to Mars? Elon talks about saving the human race. Oh, we've got to be multiplanetary. Well, in the long term, maybe. In the long term, yeah, we'll hedge our bets so in case there's an asteroid or something else. But in the next 10 to 20 years,
yeah,
he's worried about nuclear war. We should be doing stuff here on Earth to avoid a nuclear war. And the final thing, which actually surprised me when I learned about that, is there's an outer space treaty that basically would be violated with his colony on Mars, because he doesn't want to just send a few astronauts. He wants to create a colony, which is also ludicrous. But even if he did, it would this separate country would basically violate the outer space treaty, which may sound innocuous, except the outer space treaty is the same treaty that stops us from sending, from having war in space, shooting down missiles, and also it's a good prototype of the other treaties that have been done, the Ocean Treaty, the Antarctic Treaty. We don't want to start violating them. So anyway, I gave you a long answer, but for every reason in the world, it's bad.
Well, you gave me sort of an ironclad case onto why this is such a dumb, disastrous idea. Now, I did think of one thing. I forget who said it, right? I want to die on Mars, hopefully not on impact. I forget who said it, but it's a good line there. But I guess the question I have, because I love space. And I want to have sort of an aspirational, hopeful goal. And I sort of look back at what happened in the 60s and said, oh, wow, I wish I could have lived through that, right? I'm far too young to have lived through that. But I'm wondering for you, Lawrence, what should be the aspirational kind of goal from NASA and from the spacefaring? Now it's a lot of private companies like SpaceX. What should be, if it's not Mars, what should be that aspirational goal we should have?
Well, look, I mean, I think... it depends. Look, there's two things you want to do in space. You want to have adventure, and you want to do science. And when I testified with Buzz Aldrin before the House Committee on Science many years ago, you have to balance those two. And so I think, for science, the scientific community should decide what the priorities are. But I think we all are interested in finding out if there's life on other planets or even in our solar system. In the moons of Jupiter or Saturn. Yeah. There are missions proposed to look for that. We want to look and try and understand the origins of the universe. There's so many scientific projects, and essentially none of them involve humans. We're not going to go send humans to the oceans of Europa. But if you're thinking of humans living in space, well, you should do it in baby steps. We've already done it near Earth orbit ad nauseum. But clearly the moon, if you look at it, is the nearest target. And if you want to learn how to build things in space and have a base in space, the moon is the next logical place to go. And the moon is a great base to then explore the rest of the solar system, because its gravity is so low that if you want to use a launching pad, you need less fuel to launch from the moon than you do from the Earth. So it seems to make sense that you want to go to the moon next, and then maybe Mars, if you're so inclined. And again, I don't have problems with people dying on Mars. I mean, as I do, I think one-way missions are actually probably the most sensible way, where people go, that's it. And you know what? When I proposed that 30 years ago, and since then, when you ask engineers or other people, would they be willing to go on a one-way mission? So many people say yes. I mean, if they actually had to, do you believe it? Well, who knows? But
I'm pressed on time here, but I want to ask you one thing before I let you go, because you've met Elon Musk before, right? And he's given you those tours. What do you think is going through his mind, right? He must know some of the stuff that you've outlined here. Why is this such a big deal for him?
Well, I think he has made this in his real core. It's his feeling that he wants to save humanity. I like to think that. I like to think it's not some drug-fueled hallucination. But he thinks that the way to do that is to make us multiplanetary, and at all costs, that's the number one priority. And I that's the way he behaves. Mm-hmm. I haven't asked him. He wasn't very happy, as you probably know, when I posted this.
Well, I can imagine, especially with a title, "The Mars Vanity Project," which I know you're not.
I don't choose the titles; publishers do. But yeah, he responded rather viciously. Let me put it that way. I don't think he read it. I sent him. I responded to his tweet saying he should read it, and I'd be happy to have a discussion. But I think those days have passed, maybe.
Lawrence, listen, I'll direct all of our listeners to go check out your new piece on the Quillette.com website, and it's called The Mars Vanity Project, where you outline your case against going to Mars. Lawrence, thanks so much for your time today.
Okay, it's always good to talk to you. Take care.
Lawrence M. Krauss, president of the Origins Project and theoretical physicist.